last time I did a little introduction to leading your legacy, and I was talking a lot, as you lot will probably know. I was talking way too much. Like I was going into like obviously the purpose and how it came about, and I was shouting out great. You know what I'm saying? Are you great? You know what I'm saying? They great, and literally I clocked. I didn't even talk about anything about what I'm on. You know when you're so busy talking about the purpose and you're talking about what the point of this is, and you don't even think what. Why would you believe me if I'm not even talking about what I'm doing? So I thought it would be a little bit interesting to give you guys a flavour behind what I'm going with Akil Hunt. So let's take it back. So I'm from West London, and for those of you that were raised in West London, you really know. So let's keep it like that. You really know. But in the part of West London where I grew up in, it was a quite interesting experience because for those that you're interested, if you're not interested, it's cool. Like just go out, have your tea break and coffee break or whatever. Like that's calm with me. But for me, growing up in my area, which was Latimer Road, it was almost like you're trying to find who you are, but nobody really has an idea of it because the community wasn't so strong. So it wasn't really the case that I was able to find people that were really inspiring and relatable, and legacy wasn't really talked about in my community. So from my perspective, it was mainly me who who had to care about my future as much as there's people around me in my family that were really supportive and wanted me to do well. It wasn't necessarily the case um, that I had that level of inclusion in my community, and it was quite upsetting as well because I don't know if you guys experienced this, but when you don't really have people that you can speak to about, oh, I want to be like this, I want to be like that, it's very hard to feel like you're part of something. And I grew up with my mum and my brother, so we essentially lived in a space where it was very protected and it was just us. So nobody really got in the way of that, which was a blessing. But because nobody really understood me outside of those walls, it was very hard to become who I was. And as I grew up in my area, I always wanted to be in the legal industry. That was my prerogative. It was like, yeah, I can do that. And as much as it was a prerogative of mine, there wasn't anybody that really believed in me. So when I was in school, there was a lot of people who cast shadows over my ability to succeed, and they were saying, "Oh, he's just an angry black kid, so he needs anger management classes." Or they were thinking he's not particularly smart because he doesn't do well in his exams. I was very boxed in that respect, and if you've been boxed in before, you would know that you don't really want to be boxed in like that, because when you get boxed in, it feels like you're trapped. It doesn't feel like you're able to think clearly. It doesn't feel like you're able to break beyond the barriers that people place on you. So I felt that a lot when I was younger, and I was very musical as well. So because I was very musical, I really got into like piano. I was interested in rap. I used to like back in the day. Back in the day when you used to get those beats going, and then everyone would go in, and then you just used to freestyle. Like that was me. So I never really felt that element of uncomfortability being myself, but because there was no one really around me that was showing me who I was, that it made it harder to become who I want to be. So when I went to secondary school, I had a lot of challenges integrating into secondary school, and I know there's people around me that can relate that are currently, going through that period in their lives, such as my little nephews or the sons of aunties that I know, or, there's people around me that understand this. It's like when you're in school and nobody really respects you or understands what you're like, you can fall into this cycle of feeling neglected, isolated, lonely, and you don't really get that level of support. And when I was in secondary school, again, because I wasn't the most academically gifted youth, it was almost like, this kid's not bright, this kid's not smart, this kid says was and not were, this kid says water, you don't say water, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't pronounce his T's. But that was quite ironic because when I was in school, one of the key things that I always held on to, and it's something that I always felt so blessed about, was I got to a final of something called the Jack Petchy Speaker Competition when I was in year 10. Hey, yo, shout out in the comments if you been to the Jack Petchy Speaker Competition, because I promise you that was a real defining moment. And I want you guys to guess as well before you go on in this video, and also, you know, just a little curiosity. Like, what do you lot think that topic was on when I was younger? Because it said a lot about me when that topic was on. I'm not gonna say it, but if somebody gets it right, I'll pull you out. I'll sing you out still. But yeah, the topic was a juicy one, and I remember saying about it, and I was like, yeah, that topic is levels. It was levels, and I got through to the borough final, and I represented my school, and that was the first time where I got this level of respect and appreciation from people due to my voice, and that was the first point in my life where I was like, yeah, I'm on the come up now. Like, I know what my bag is. I know that when I speak properly. And I don't speak with any ambiguity. I speak with thoroughness. I don't speak with a lack of commitment to what I'm saying. So that was a really good time for me, and it was amongst a time where I never really got that perspective of, you know, you're smart, you're talented, you're great. I never got any of that. It was like, no, I think you'll do all right, but you ain't the smartest you on the block, so I don't think you can be a lawyer. But if you really want to try and do it, we can try and support you. So that was quite a challenging time in itself. So going into college, I did all right in school. I wasn't really a bad kid in school, I'll be honest. I was quite a good kid, but you know when people try and push your buttons and you're a bit like, you know, you're a bit under the defensive. That was me. So when people pushed my buttons, it was quite hard to navigate it because I didn't grow up in an environment where I felt safe. I didn't feel in an environment where I felt secure. I didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't just go and spend my problems away. It wasn't anything like that. There's a lot of things going on where I was from where it was like really challenging, and a lot of our conversation when we were younger, just for insight, was not, oh, what university are we going to go to, or what profession are we going to break into. It was, how do we stay alive? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do we actually get to school safe? You know, how do we make sure that we're on point? That was the main concern, because there was a lot of things going around where people were getting hurt, people getting, you know, accosted, and it wasn't particularly, you know, there wasn't a lot of opportunity either. So it wasn't like you could just find opportunity if you wanted to. It was more like you had to figure out who you're looking to become. So when I went into my college years, I know you're not thinking, this guy's saying his whole life story, man, I'm done with it. But I think it's really important for the context of what else is to come on this show, because it can hopefully give you a new perspective as to, you know, what it was like for me growing up, and you get a perspective on that. So when I went to college, yeah, it was quite mad because there's a lot of guys that I knew from college and girls I knew from college that I'm still friends with now. And I kid you not, like, college was lit. Hey, I'm telling you, like, it was so lit. When I was in St. Charles College, boy, if you know St. Charles, I don't need to say too much, but you know, if you know. And St. Charles was a movie because it was the first time I genuinely felt like I could be myself, and it was so important for what legacy I'm looking to leave behind. And when I was in St. Charles, there were so many people that I could resonate with and identify with, because, you know, if you know St. Charles, it was predominantly a black community. So if you was not black in St. Charles, you were in a minority. It was that deep. Like, it was so strange. It was in London, but it was so cosmopolitan. It was so embracing of different cultures, and it was a real moment for me where I felt at home. So I go through college, I meet people, and, you know, celebrate. We play piano, we make music, and that's when I really started to find out that once I become this lawyer in the future, I'm gonna have to think about, like, how do I make sure that those around me are good and those around me are sound. So that made me feel more community. But here's the thing, yeah. When I was in college, imagine, it was the time that I found out about what my grades were. The grades weren't graded. The grades weren't graded. I can't lie. The grades weren't graded still. It was a bit deep. Like I got the results. My brother told me, he gave me a phone call. Like he said, "Yo, hey, these grades have come true, you know." And I was like, "Yes, we're done." He's like, "Yeah." It's peak. I was like, "Say no." And you know the times you don't even get told to fix up, but you have to fix up in it. So when I went to second year of college, that was the changing point in my life because it was that point in time where I started to really understand, cool, if I'm really going to move hard and move properly in my thing, I need to understand who I am. And college was a real definitive point for me because it meant, here's how I'm going to move, here's how I'm going to shape who I am, here's how I'm going to become me. And in college, people can vouch for this, so if you're not think this is cap, go find my people in college and tell them, when Akil was in the second year of college, what was he like? I was at college at 8 in the morning. I was, doing history classes. I was focused. I was revising at my break. I was going to extra classes. I was getting a tutor for French. I was like, it was my mum as well helping me, but it was like, I need to get this now. Because man can't be coming to St. Charles College just having the fun and games and not be trying to get this thing. So when I was in college, it gave me a real lease on life to go get it. I was going gym 4 or 5 times a week. Back then, me and Jim, we were best friends. Every time it hit like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, I was like, yeah, it's gym time. You know what I'm saying?
Show them the muscles.
You don't, you don't know. Back in the day, it was a bit more still. Back in the day, it was a bit more bolo, and but now man's a little bit choppy right now.
You're still hench, allow it.
Hey, shout out to Mola, man. He's really get heads. He's a real get heads guy.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Shout out to Mola, man. Big up. But yeah, I can't lie. But back then, I can't lie. I was more bolo, way more bolo back then. Like, you know when you're walking around college and you're holding the sports bag, the big sports bag in your hand, yeah, and it's making the veins come out, like,
yeah.
you know the ones.
Oh, the girl looking at your arm.
Hey, it was different. It was different. I can't lie. I felt like a little celebrity and that, because man had the, I've got the cap low right now. I had the cap low, and man was like moving around college like with the eyes low, just focused in it. Like it was real.
Like you were £1 million.
Yo,
what is that? Footballer, innit?
Yeah. man
just signed new contract and whatnot.
New contract, man got the new contract. I'm Saka on these roads.
Right.
I'm Makayo Saka on these roads.
Yeah.
But those days were mad, absolutely mad. But what I clocked is like when I got real focused, it just really made me think. All right, so if I'm focused, I gotta get results. And when I got my results, I can't lie, the results were resulting a little bit more, but it was still a bit peak because I got into my insurance university. But that was the biggest blessing for me, and I won't go too much deal about university because that's a long conversation to have. But university changed me because that was the time where I started to notice when I was in my bubble that, cool, I can really create something here. I can move and I can shape my vision for who I am as a person. And as I discussed already, that's when I came up with the concept about the new black, and I started to really create a community of people, and it really helped me to consider like what does legacy mean to me in that vein. But in another vein, it was really important to me because I was getting scholarships, I was winning awards, I was really pushing myself, doing negotiation competitions, I was representing my law school, sitting on board of trustees. I was like but it wasn't even about me, it was about the community that I was a part of. Because Grenfell Tower happened on the 4th of June 2017, and that was slap in the middle of university, And I promise you, that day was a day where, when the configuration of your mind, it just reforms. I don't know what that even means, but for me at the time, it was a real changer because Grenfell took a part of me out that's never been replaced. Because I still remember that day like it was yesterday, and for those that don't understand, like Latimer Road is the closest station to Grenfell. So because I grew up in that area, I saw it on the night that it happened. Because I also live in a high-rise block, and it was really strange because Grenfell really taught me so much about people, about integrity, about justice. It taught me about life and how quickly it can get taken from you, And it just showed me like, if I'm really gonna do this thing, I've got to really come properly. And as you might see on my shirt, I'm wearing a shirt that shows a young man. And this young man was taken from us in July 2016, the summer before Grenfell. And that also shocked me because at that time I was really in a space that I wanna move in spaces where I really help people and really champion a cause. And to play football with him, see him grow up and see him get taken away at such a young age, it was like it was so sad. And it really taught me a lot because it showed me that, you know, no matter what happens when you're growing up, not everybody makes it, and not everybody's gonna have opportunities that you have. And to go through all this trauma in university, and sometimes for this trauma to get almost dismissed by people because they don't understand your trauma, it really made me think, so what am I gonna do? Because ultimately, when you're part of a community and you're part of people that really care about others, you can see who don't. And in my career to this point in time, like, I've really gone into law with this mindset that, okay, I'm gonna learn about the business. I've interned at investment banks, I've interned at international law firms, I've interned at all these, you know, niche boutique firms and whatnot. But what my core was, how can I make sure that this makes the community better? And towards the end of university, I was really thinking, so should I even be a lawyer? Because I want to do so much in my community that being a lawyer may not even serve that interest. And I remember I got recommended to speak to a guy who worked at an international media company that was so well respected. And I spoke to the guy and he was so supportive of my love for community. And that's when I noticed, actually, I can be pro-community and be in the legal industry because people will really care if they really get my spirit, they get the content of my character. And when I got the opportunity to work with him, I was like, yeah, I can boss this. And that same period in life, you know, I made history in my law school, I did a graduation speech with my cohort, and then my real focus was, so how do I build on this legacy? Because I want to make sure that I'm building now. Because it's not about just what success I can bring to the table for my own ego. It's about how can I build something that makes sense and serves people. So I was doing talks in my old university. I did talks at my old college. I was trying to raise aspirations. And I was even did something I won't speak of right now, but at one point I will, where it really tested the extent to which I thought and I valued my intellect. And I tried to push myself and I didn't do what I wanted to do in that respect. But what I gave was the confidence to say, I've got all these plans, I've got all these visions. So how am I going to make them happen? So when I got an offer to train as a lawyer, that was a really interesting time for me because it wasn't just about like, I'm trying to become a lawyer at this international law firm. It was about how do I cement this legacy now? And that led to a load of other things happening in that year, you know? And to be fair, legacy was an important part of it, but there was another part of it where it was like, I just want to add value. Like, I just want to be valuable. I don't want to live a life of mediocrity. I don't want to be a guy that just sits in a corner, you know, with a Dolce & Gabbana. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want to do them things there. Like, I want to do something proper. So, for me, I didn't want to just be this next person who is connected to African Caribbean culture, who has no connection with the culture and just goes off and be a culture vulture, because for me it's just what everybody else is doing. Like, because I saw so many people leaving their culture behind and going to this industry and acting like they no longer came from that community. They acted like they had to adopt a whole new community because that is what is the status quo. And that's when I started reforming my ideology and thinking, so how do I lead and not subscribe to this dimension of reality where I'm just becoming everybody else? And that's what led me to Tanzania. I did an economic development project in Tanzania. I was trying to make a marketing branding program. I was doing my postgraduate course. I was writing an ebook on mental health, trying to unlock people after lockdown. Had the fortune of interning at an educational consultancy group that worked internationally. Met some fantastic people within that. You know, some of them that are working on this show as we speak. And you know, I just managed to live in purpose. And it wasn't like, oh, this brother just come and live in purpose because he just is preordained or like, it's just everyone does it. Like, no, it was not like that. Like, it was that kind of period where I was thinking about, so who am I going to become? Because if you're not intentional about who you're going to become, in my reality, then you're just going to become some any old you. You know them old crusty people that have no integrity. They will do anything for a check. That was never going to be me. So that's why I was like, so how do I make that happen? And funny enough, when I interned at an educational consultancy group, my main focus was, how do I learn from people who care about people? How do I learn people that lead in their values? And it was never about how do I just make everybody happy? Because when I focused on those things in the past, it meant I just played to my ego. But I learned over time, you can't just play to your ego. You need to think about what matters to you. So before I started my training contract, I was doing that internship, and I was also a race consultant to a university, and I was learning about how do I actually help people who come from diverse communities, not just African Caribbean community, to bring up their aspirations and help them represent themselves authentically. So it was a real period in my life, and I can't lie, it was a tough time because, without going to too much at this point in time, as I'm still in the process of understanding it, I lost someone very dear to me in 2021, and that changed a lot for me because it was literally a couple of days before I started my training contract. It was like 4 days before my birthday, and it ruined my spirit because it broke me down into pieces that were not mended, and it took a long time to come to terms with that grief. Because imagine starting a new career and a new life in this international law firm, and you're meant to be this glitzy, glamorous guy who everybody's like rocking with because you're living your values and you're suffering inside. That was me, you know? And that led to being so disjointed in my values. I literally went abroad to somewhere in East Africa, like, and I was trying to help out by like being in the community and listening to challenges happening in the African Caribbean diaspora. And I just wouldn't focus because I was going through all this trauma and all this grief and all this pain. It just rotted away my core, and I had no inkling of how I'm gonna be. So all the success was happening around me. Like, I was working with international brands on their media platforms. Like, I was running these live streams. I was, really trying to champion my values, but I just couldn't focus because even during these times before I started my training contract, it was almost like it didn't really matter to me because there's so many things that are still to be shown through that work that was going on, but I just couldn't do it. So when I was doing my training contract, imagine you're training as a lawyer, you're not even focused because there's so many things happening in your life where like you're just emotionally detached from it all. So there's nobody there that can help you stand tall because nobody really noticing that you're just crawling towards where you're trying to be. It was really hard, and that taught me a lot because it made me come out of my ego. And before the year before that, I came out ego more because I was trying to set up a social enterprise and I failed myself and others because my leadership skills wasn't good. So when I was trying to work on my leadership skills and working in the not-for-profit space, that meant that I had to learn a lot. So imagine doing public speaking, imagine trying to be in a not-for-profit space and trying to consult people, but you don't really feel confident in who you are. And that was me. It was like, I felt so much trauma, so much pain, so much grief, so much uncertainty, so much anxiety. Like, I went to therapy twice in this season because it was just so crazy. Like, I honestly was not present for a lot of the moments that concerned the end of not the end, but the end of 2020 and the start of my training contract. And it wasn't even until like March 2022 when I was going to this entrepreneurial program called Future Boss, and I was meeting people that were value driven and people in my training contract that really supported me, that I was starting to notice actually I can really be me. I don't need to hide behind my trauma, my grief, my pain, my anxiety. I don't need to feel like I'm by myself because I'm not. So that helped immensely open up to people and actually show vulnerability. And a whole part of my legacy and what I'm looking to do is really show people that, authenticity, community, and legacy is so fundamental to my values. And there's so much work I've been doing behind the scenes to create community, whether it's helping aspiring lawyers get into the industry, running not for profit and be at the intersection of issues in the legal industry, or doing things in the grassroots community. Like, I'm trying my best to make sure that my impact and my legacy is sustained through my values and my ethos and what I seek to represent. However, one thing I want you guys to know when you're listening to me speak or you're listening to the guests come on is that nothing is ever what it seems. So don't ever look at myself or a guest and think you've got it all, or you've got nothing like me, or I can't relate to you, because there is going to be something that we share in common. And I want that to be the thing that draws us together. I don't want you to look at me and think, oh, you come from a council estate in West London, like, and you're now a legal professional. Like, you don't know what it's like to be a janitor. You don't know what it's like to be a cleaner. You don't know what's like to be a shopping assistant. You don't know what's like to work in a retirement home. My first ever job was working in a retirement home. Do you know what I'm saying? My second job was making salads for £6.85 an hour. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still remember the salary. I was like, rah. Like, I'm rich. Like, I genuinely thought I was rich. Like, I was literally earning, like, what, $250 every 2 weeks for a part-time job. I said, I'm wealthy. I've got so much money. Like, that was me on the come up. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember having a job at university, yeah, where I was knocking on doors and trying to raise money for charity, and I was earning, like, what, how much an hour? I don't even know. I can't remember. But I remember thinking, I'm so wealthy. But I thought to myself, this is not worth the money. So it took me time to think about what's worth the money and what's not worth the money. And all these things led to a large understanding of what my values are. To this day, I still make decisions to say, is it about the money or is it about the purpose? You know what I'm saying? And I've started to think about it all the time, because in my life, I've noticed that whenever I said it's about money first, I fell, because I get driven by the financial gain of the task, and I don't think about the longevity of the vision. And that crippled me so much, because when I started thinking about that on my journey, a lot of the time it meant I'd be prioritizing the wrong things. And what I learned was, actually, when I tried to, be myself and try to lean into my character, it genuinely made me feel like I could be me. And I felt free of any fear and any concerns. And for me, one of the most cognitive parts of my journey, and it's a part that I'm going to be sharing a lot more, is being more in tune with spoken word and the creative world. Because as much as I'm going to be a legal professional and work with people who are creatives, I like to know that I understand their world because I live their world every day. So for me, spoken word is a real outlet for me and a real vehicle for who I'm looking to become. And there's so much I want to use spoken word for in order to cement my legacy and who I am as a person. And hopefully over time you'll be seeing that, you'll be understanding that, and you can really join me as part of that growth and that trajectory. But I really want you guys to understand, when you're listening to me and you're seeing the thing that's going on, like, it's not been simple. Like, this year, I've been in the House of Lords, I've been in the House of Commons, I've been in some beautiful spaces with some beautiful people, like conferences, events with some high profile people. And when you notice that this room wouldn't even be what it is without the people. And then you forget where you are. And I've been through that so many times, it's incredible. And I've been blessed to have such beautiful people around me who really support me and want me to win, And that's something that I can only encourage us to build as a community, because leading your legacy is not about my personal brand. It's not about your ego. It's not about my ability to lead my legacy. It's about how do we create a space that we understand more about what legacy means to us and where we're going as a collective. Because I want us to be a community. I want us to be something that grows and develops over time. I want to have these intervals within the show where I can share more about what my journey is and give you more perspective to what's going on. I just want to give you that perspective, because this is not a one-sided conversation of I'm educating you. We're learning together. And one thing I'd really like to leave a note on for you guys is, when you're listening to the show and listening to me more specifically, is I care about you and I care about where we go. So when you're listening to this and you're understanding what's going on through your lens, please just try, as I said in the first part of this introduction to myself within the lens of the show, just be yourself and feel the need to connect and build the community, because we're never going to be a community if we don't work together and support each other. Everybody that's going through a challenge right now is not going through in isolation and wants to go through it together. Because as we lead our legacies and as we become more in tune with who we are as spiritual beings in physical forms, I want us to really double down on who we are. Because if we don't double down on who we are and what we represent, it just becomes a conversation that you're tapping into without feeling that you're part of it. there are gonna be times when I invite you to come to a meetup, and I'd say, come, share your journey. There's gonna be times where, you know, we might be having an event in collaboration with somebody, and we're saying, yo, come and join this part of this community. Like, because we're intersecting in the wider aspects of humanity. We're not just existing within a very closeted perspective. We're like, oh, if you're not part of Leading Your Legacy Collective, then you don't mean nothing. No, we collaborate and we engage and we grow. So hopefully you guys can understand a bit more about me and my journey. You know, there's so much that I'd love to share with you that I will share in due course. You know, I've definitely got some funny stories to share. You know what I'm saying? I've definitely got some memories, you know, that will definitely be some lessons to learn in terms of the wider landscape of social entrepreneurship, of the legal world, of community building, of just trying to live in your values. And I really hope that we learn together and we build together on this, because it's gonna really make who we are special. So yeah, hope you guys get a bit more insight into me, what I'm on, and until next time, you know where to find us. Sky.